This is the use of the sacred tarot, week 3, from the Brotherhood of Light, Church of Light lessons, brought to you by CC Zhang. Getting to the questions, but if you have any questions in the meantime, put the questions inside of the chat, and we'll try to record those questions and answer those questions at the close of the meeting, after the close of the official meeting. The first thing that we want to do is go over a review of the handouts from week number 2. And those handouts were the table of correspondences, the tarot table chart, contacting invisible help, and the test questions, which I'm not sure if I put those test questions on. But what I will say about the test question is, if you look at your course syllabus, in your course syllabus, you will find the handouts that will be used at each of the prospective meetings. You will find the questions for the test to prepare you to take the test to pass course number 6 of the Sacred Tarot in the Church of Light. You will find that those questions in there as well. And if by some reason you can't access the various handouts from the different weeks, please say so in the chart, and we'll try to get you right if it's on our end, or if you may be a little bit struggling with the technology on your end. We'll try to make that happen for you. Starting off, we'll be dealing with the table of correspondences. For those who do not know where the table of correspondences is yet, then that means one or two things. That means, one, that you probably haven't looked at your handouts, and two, that you probably have not opened up your book, the Sacred Tarot, and began to read, because this is literally, after the table of contents and all of that, this is literally the first thing that you're going to come in contact with. It is serial in front of serial lesson number 48, which is the first serial lesson inside of the book, the table of correspondences. And the table of correspondences basically covers the 7 things that that the tarot cards are related to. And that's not to say that it can't be related to any more things, but these are the core 7 things that is related to. 1 being the Hebrew character, 2 the Hebrew letter, 3 the English letter, 4 the astrological correspondence, 5 the color, 6 the gem of metal, and 7 the divinatory significance. And if you don't believe me, let's look at it. Okay, now, a lot of people spoke about it being blurry inside of the handout, so they weren't able to see it. The only place that I saw it wasn't blurry yet was inside of the book. So this is a enlarged, blurry copy. So depending on how well your eyes are or what kind of glasses you have, maybe you can follow me right here.
Aurelia,
The first one that,
yes. I just
Uh-huh.
wanted to let everyone know that I loaded up a clean copy of this table onto the document link on Google Drive.
Okay. All right. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
I took the blurry one off and put in a clean, clear copy.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, so the as you see, the Hebrew character is this section right here. All of this section right here, those are the Hebrew characters. The Hebrew letter is what that character is the name for that particular character. And this is only 1 through 4, but if you look at the actual document, it has 1 through 22 or 0. 22 being 22 or 0, depending on which way that is facing. Then you have the English letter that represents it, A, B, and it doesn't go in order, so you have to make sure that you pay attention to it, but all of the letters are represented. And then you have the astrological correspondence. the planet, which will either be a planet or a sign that particular card ruled by. And the 1, 2, 3, 4, all of the numbers on here, those are going to signify which of the major arcana that card is. Make no mistake about it, the table of correspondence is talking about the 22 cards in the major arcana. Then you have the color. The colors are violet, dark violet, and so forth, all the way down. Each one of these colors are represented. For those who have history in the Church of Light system of astrology, then this right here should probably be a breath of fresh air to you, where you say, oh man, it's just cut down on 75% of the learning that I have to do. For those who do not have a background in astrology, in the Church of Light system of astrology, this might be an uphill battle for you and say, oh, wait a minute, I got 75% more to learn to do. But it's not that hard. You got a cheat sheet right here. And so just cheat until you don't have to cheat no more on this sheet. And then you have the gem or the metal that's represented by the particular tarot card, which, for instance, the second card in the major arcanum, which is the unveiled Isis, would be the metal of the gem ruled by unveiled Isis, which is Virgo, would be Jasper. And then finally, you have the divinatory significance. The divinatory significance is really the most brief description that you receive, that you can give, and that will adequately represent that particular card if you pulled it during a spread or some other type of divinatory means. For instance, if you put number 3, which is unveiled Isis, which is Libra, and depending on what spot, let's say you put it in the first spot, and the first spot was representing the past. So this would tell you that the past of the matter of the question that you're doing the reading for is leaving a situation that's dealing with some type of marriage or some type of action regarding a partnership or marriage. But just this right here, just say action of marriage. I was able to say partnership because I understand what Libra represents. And so the more that you understand the astrological correspondence or the astrological sign that correspond with that particular arcana, then the more meaning and definition that you have inside of the reading of that card. So astrology, once again, is important. Firstly, we'll be starting off with the major arcana. And for those, now this chart right here, this could be your SOS piece of paper right here. In fact, if for those who are not familiar with astrology, or for those who are not, with the tarot, and for those who are not familiar with this system, then I would advise for you to have this chart, maybe make a copy of it, laminate it, do whatever it is that you do. And this is a little bit different than some of the other ones. I updated it for the ones that was in the handout. And what you will see that's different inside of this chart right here is that I included all of the planets that has the vibration on the minor arcana, as well as the decants for each one of the cards. But let's get back on track to the major arcana. The major arcana will be represented by starting at 1 and ending at 22. And remember, 22 is right here. I don't know if you can see this red, like a red eye moving right here. This not an actual eye, this is the laser. So the 22 is right here. And remember, 22 also becomes 0. And we'll explain that as we go forward. So the major arcana, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And now here's 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22. And what you will find on this chart, the divinatory significance, you will find is written inside of here. Veil Isis, that's science. Isis unveiled, again, action marriage. Remember, I just gave the example of if that card was there, how action and marriage would play there. uh, realization when we dealing with number 4. And let me make this a little bit larger for you. Maybe that might help a little bit. I know it's going to help me. So we got realization right here. Number 5, religion or law. 6, temperance. 7, victory. This is the conquer. 8, the balance, which is justice or equilibrium. And again, just to give you something to go with when we discuss 8, and Zane talks about the difference between the tarot decks. And what he mentions is that most of the time when you see these tarot decks, they reflect something of the people that created those tarot decks at that time. So the slight deviations that you see reflect the culture of what is taking place for the people that those tarot decks are represented. So this tarot deck is the Egyptian tarot deck, coming from the Hermetic system, which is the Egyptian system. This is the same system when we look inside of these books of scriptures that all of these great prophets that came study in these schools in Egypt. And this is the whole shebang that we deal with when we're dealing with the magic, when we're dealing with the alchemy, and when we are dealing with the astrology inside of the system in the Church of Light or the Brotherhood of Light. So one thing that he spoke and said about the number 8. Now, for those who use other decks, one of the things that you will notice is that the card for justice or the card for balance is usually number 11. And how Zane explains this is that in the Egyptian system, the 2 pans, which represents the scales, represents the balance. And in order for anything to be fair, in order for anything to be balanced, it has to be even. When we look at 11, which is a higher octave and not a root number, 11 is an odd number, so it can never be balanced. It's always going to be a little lopsided right there. But when you look at the balance coming from number 8, you have realization plus realization. And when you think about it, and you are trying to give, let's say you are trying to give an assessment, you have 2 people that's coming to you with a problem, and you're trying to be the judge to rectify that problem. In order for you to rightfully do so, you have to look at it from the reality of all of the people that are involved. And so if you have 2 parties, then you're looking at it from what is the reality, the realization from this party, what is the reality, the realization from the next party, and then after looking at both of those, you can fairly come to a decision on what's proper and what decision would be justified or be just in this particular situation. Why? Because you are dealing with realization, not one-sided. It is even. You have the 2 pans of the scale. You have both realities that's placed inside of those pans. And so that, my friend, is the balance card and why number 8 fits better for that. And if you disagree with it, you have the right to disagree with it, but this is the reasoning that's given inside of the Egyptian tarot with the Church of Light. Now remember, when you use your weight decks or all of those other decks, those decks are going to be right according to that system. This is not that system. We're trying to show you this system. And so it's a couple of other differences, and I want to deal with these differences so you're not dismayed or disenchanted or anything like that. Some of the differences, some of the other cards actually put astrological symbols on there. And when they put astrological symbols on there and you compare it to this deck right here, you'll say, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. That's not where they didn't have Scorpio for number 4. They had Scorpio for number 13. And they had Aries for number 4. And you say, which one of these is right? Which way do I go? Which way do I go? Right? So, but the thing is, it is 2 different systems. Remember, Zane incorporated all of this and gave it the proper correspondence that would relate to the system in the Church of Light and astrology, how it is. And just to give you another cookie to go with that, what we have is, and I'm not going to go into the whole thing, but you ultimately have to learn about decays. Just like when you're singing, you have octaves, right? Let's say you start off at a C and you go up to the next octave, then that is a higher C. It's the same note, but it's on a higher level. And so they call it an octave since you are dealing with the number 8. Here we have decays. You got 7 notes. The 8th one is the octave. We have 9 numbers. The 10th one is the decade. 1 through 9, single digits. Then once you add another 1 and a 0 to it, you got 2 other digits to it. And so that is a decade. Just like middle C is an octave of the lower C. That is an octave because it is the 8th one. This is a decade because it is the 10th one. And it makes sense when you think about it. So going with that, and we look, we'll see, okay, number 4. Number 4 is Scorpio, right? Now, what happens when you add 9 to 4? What number do you get when you add 9 to 4? Unless my math is wrong, and if my math is wrong, you have to blame the public schools in the United States of America. But I would say that 9 plus 4 is 13. And what happens when we go to 13? Let's see. Number 13, as we see over here, is the Reaper. And what sign rules the Reaper? Aries. Now ask yourself this question. What does 13, no, let me give you one more. Let's look at one more of these. Okay, what happens if we add 9 to 13? What number will we get then? If we add 9 to 13, and if my math is correct, then we're going to end up with 22. Let's see what's number 22 right quick. 22 is right here. 22 is the materialist. The planetary affinity with that is Pluto. Now ask yourself this question. What does 4, what does 13, what does 22 have in common? For those who have studied the system of astrology, then you will quickly be able to see the commonality between those two. But what they have in common is Scorpio has a co-ruler. Although Scorpio is ruled by Pluto, Scorpio is co-ruled by Mars in many of the system, and Mars also rules Aries. So Scorpio and Aries always have an affinity with each other, and so too does Mars and Pluto. And yeah, we got Mars here too, but this example worked for those right there, just to give you a little bit of that. And once you begin to study this chart and study this system, the more you know about astrology, the more you can see about the relationship between the various arcana cards and the minor arcana cards, the major arcana cards, the court cards, and so forth. And then the more wholesome your readings will be, because the more you'll begin to understand what it is that you are seeing when you are dealing with these perspective cards. All right, so that's the major arcana. Now, the next one that we will go to is the minor arcana. All right, so in the minor arcana is going to be your everything that's below here, 1 through 9, 1 through 10, but we'll deal with how that 10th card works. But 1 through 9 in your suit of scepters, 1 through 9 in your suit of cups, 1 through 9 in your suit of coins, and 1 through 9 in your suit of swords. And I think I have this later here, but let's deal with it now. The minor arcana is divided up with suits. And these suits are your wands, your cups, your coins, and your swords. Each one of these suits have a certain rulership. Each one of these suits have a certain element that they rule. And when you look at your handout sheets, it'll tell you on there, but the scepters is what is ruling fire. The cups is what is ruling water. The coins is what is ruling air. The swords is what is ruling earth. Now here again, let's deal with this other thing that a lot of people that already read the tarot cards and probably been dealing with weight decks or other decks and not familiar with our system, what you would say is, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. They said that coins is air and swords is earth. It's the other way around. They got it wrong. The only thing that I would like to say to you is no, different system, different system. Now, when you look at and I don't go all day trying to justify what's put here. This is what the system is. Coins. When you deal with coins, you're dealing with air, right? What other term do we use for the exchange of money? What we call, when we use the exchange of money, we call that currency. When you say currency, immediately you're probably thinking about the air. You could say water, but immediately you're thinking about the air. You're thinking about the exchange. And if you didn't agree with that 20 years ago, right now, while we are in this digital age, how can you not see that currency is dealing with the digitalization and the air? This is where our financial exchange takes place, in the air. It is haven't been as more pronounced as it is in our current day and time. Swords. When Zane explains about the source, and you go back and you look inside of your book and just go through the table of contents, and it'll tell you each one, the explanation that he give for each one of these things in the origin of the tarot cards and so forth. And that's going to be a bonus question at some period in this class. Swords. When you think about swords, you are thinking about the hardships. When you think about swords, you are thinking about, you cannot think about swords without thinking about mortality. This is what's used to stop physical life. This is what's used to protect physical life. So when you see swords, swords is dealing with earth, the physical things, the physical aspects of things. And then another thing that we get to when we look at the minor arcana is, and this is where course 7 comes in handy at. And y'all really need to check out Vanessa Brown's videos. I know I put that in there as something that we'll touch for my number 8 bullet point, but you have to check out her videos. She give you a very good rundown on the deaconess, and look up course 7, spiritual astrology. And how does that help with your reading? So when you look, let's take for instance number 1. And number 1 is the suit of scepters. And number 1 of scepters, we'll say, is Aries, right? It's Aries in the first decanate. And so Aries in the first decanate is like Aries with Mars in it. And the inner meaning for that, each one of these minor arcanas have an inner meaning. The inner meaning for that is activity. Once you begin to understand the astrological significance, then equating Mars with activity makes absolute sense to you. The beginning of our solar year begins with Aries. Be it not for Aries in that first decanate, then spring would never come. If spring never came, then the activity of life would never begin to have its process. So this is Aries in the first decanate. And then if you look at number 2, and some of and let me show you how the major arcana factors into this. See, when you deal with astrology, when you deal with tarot, especially the tarot system that we have, it is directly correlated with the astrological system that we have. So to learn one is to reduce what it is that you have to relearn in order to learn the other. And so the message, the quick message that it gives you here about if you was to pull number one, the one of scepters inside of a reading, the message that it would give you is news of a business opportunity. Why does it say business? Because first of all, fire or the suit of scepters represents your business activities. And then number one, you still cannot exclude the major arcanan that 1 through 9 is represented. Because remember, once we move beyond 9, we are dealing with decay. So the root has already been given to you. And so number 1 of the major arcanan represent the magus, will and dexterity, but the planet, the astrological significance to that is Mercury. And Mercury rules communication. Mercury is what was called the messengers of the god, the messenger of the gods. And so in each number 1 that you go to, you will include Mercury in there from the major arcana. So each number 1 is going to be reflective of some type of message. The type of message, the type of communication that is reflective of will depend on what the suit is that you are looking at. And so it is with each one of these that we see. For instance, we go down to cups and we look at number 4 cups. Well, 1 through 3 of cups represents the first 3 decadents of water, which is Cancer. Cancer with Cancer in it. Cancer with the Scorpio influence. Cancer with the Pisces influence. But when you get to the 4th decadent, the 4th one of water, then you are dealing with Scorpio. And again, you got to go through the astrology to get it. You could look at this and learn it this way, or ultimately visit the astrology. Visit course number 7. Visit Vanessa Brown's video. So number 4, you have Scorpio right there. This is the 4 cups. Scorpio with Scorpio influence. That means Scorpio with Pluto there. And the message that's given there is increase in the family. Why would we get a message like that? Well, let's look at it. When you look at the major arcana, number 4 is also Scorpio. This is realization. When we look inside of existence, the best way that we can produce a reality is to reproduce. And so the outward meaning of number 4 is increase in the family. Let me ask you a question. Which signs rules the reproductive organs? That's Scorpio that rules the male reproductive organs. The inner meaning of that is resourcefulness. When you go and you begin to study the teachings that's brought in the Church of Light and C.C. Zane, you will learn about the different wants, the 3 drives and desires that we have. And reproducing is one of them. Our desires. And so it is, we can go on and on. We could do a whole week on each one of these and even more. So I move on to the tens. When you get to the tens, let's see. When we get to the tens, the 10th card in the major arcana is the wheel. And what it says is change of fortune. But the astrological significance of that, or the astrological correspondence of that, is Uranus. And when you learn the astrology, the thing that you learn about Uranus is sudden. Uranus make things happen without pretty much giving a forewarning a lot of times. Uranus is independent. Uranus is eccentric. Uranus moves and marches by its own beat. Uranus tears down structures in order to build up new structures. And so each one of these tens will represent something that gives you something new. It represents something that may be considered eccentric. It represents something that may be considered extreme. It represents something that may be considered electrifying, because Uranus rules electricity. And so for one of them, you will see when you're dealing with fire, you're dealing with an invention or a discovery. Enthusiasm is the inner meaning. When you're dealing with water, you're dealing with a decidedly unconventional, affectional interest. That's that eccentricity right there. Emotion is the theme. When you're dealing with air, you're dealing with alternate financial loss and gain. Just lost that. Well, I'm up again. Just hit the lottery. Aspiration is the internal meaning. And when you're dealing with earth, earth is that physical thing. Earth is what we're using for our livelihood. Sudden loss of employment. Unexpected loss of employment. And an inner meaning being practicality. You see, man, you can go. It's so much, man. I really urge y'all to get the astrology if you don't have it, because when you have that, then you can go beyond this 4-word, which this 4 words is great. I wrote a couple of years with just these few words right here, and it worked perfectly fine. My readings were on point, all of that. But once you allow yourself to step outside of that box, because what you have internalized with the astrology, man, you get so much more out of it, and your readings reflect that. And so if you get more out of it, your readings reflect that, then the clients, the people that you have that you do the readings for, get so much more out of it. All right, so then now we have the court cards. And in the court cards, we are dealing with what would be called the king, the queens, the youth. You got the horses, but we'll deal with that in a second. What you're dealing with is the king, the queen, and the youth. And that's in each one of the suits. And it will start off with fire. You have Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. With water, you have Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. With air, you have Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. And with earth, you have Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. Now, someone asked a question about the emanations that Christopher Gibson spoke on, and the first degree of emanation and so forth. You got to ask Christopher about that. But this is what I will tell you. Now, when you deal with, if you pay attention to this, you will see that the kings, which represent the kings, is the first ones that we run into in the astrological order for that particular element. The Aries is the first one that we run into inside of fire. Cancer is the first sign that we run into inside of water. Gemini is the first sign that we run into inside of air. And Taurus is the first sign that we run into inside of earth. And as you go, the queens are the second signs that we run into inside of those elements. And then your youth is the third signs that we run into inside of those elements. So maybe that might be where you get it from. But you gotta ask him. I can't tell you what another man's words mean. I can only tell you what I think about him. What we have after that is the horseman. Now, the horseman, while you have the king, the queen, and the youth, the king and the queen, and the youth, whenever you see them, they are actually representing people. And the more you know about those particular signs based on the placement that you see them inside of the spread, then that gives you, it provides you more information about that person. You can just go with the 3 or 4 words that's given here, but if you learn them, then there's other attributes that you can add to it, and then you give your unconscious mind something more to work with that gives you a better explanation of what might be going on inside of that spread. But when you're dealing with the horseman, you are not dealing with people. You are dealing with the thoughts of that particular element. So when you are in fire, since fire represents business, if the card is upwards, then it represents business that is advantageous. If it is reversed, it is like an opposition. It represents business that's opposed to the interest of whoever or whatever is the object for that reading. And so it is when you deal with water that represents affections. And so when you're dealing with affections, again, if it's upright, it's favorable. If it's reversed, then it represents what reverse affection is. A reversed affection or an adverse affection is deceit. An adverse affection is deceit. Again, yeah, that's a good one. Delusional. Anything, any negative emotion that you can think of, that will represent a reverse. And so it is with air. Air represents money or finance. It don't just have to be paper money. It's the equivalent of money, which is finance, resources. If it's up and favorable, then like it says, it's talking about the health of your resources. If it's reverse, it's talking about a loss or something to that with that energy. And then finally, when we deal with earth and the horsemen in earth, we are dealing with the physical world, our everyday world that affects our physical body, that affects our well-being. And so upright, you're dealing with the enmity, the strife, and the sickness and so forth. Reverse, you're dealing with those things, and it's the defense of. And when it's reversed, that means that you're negatively affected by it. Not you, but whoever is the object of that particular read. And so that's where we have it. That, my friends, is the major arcana. I understand that at the last meeting that everyone didn't get to choose their partners and so forth. And so what I am going to ask everyone to pick your partners. You got your 15 minutes. After you pick your partners, if you got time left, then y'all can go over some of the stuff that we've been discussing so far inside of this class. But make sure that you get with your partners, and that's what our icebreaker would be today. The way that you would choose your partners is to either inbox them or you'll do it how you do it. But mainly we just want to make sure that we get it done. And another note, when choosing your partners, please don't choose the staff. The staff is here as support and to help us with it. Please choose your peers in the class that's going to be your partners, and y'all create the time that y'all will get together. And what we ask for is that you get together at least once a week and video chat. And what you're doing when you're video chatting is you're going over the spreads, and you're also going over the homework, whatever the homework was for that week, whether you want to deal with the test questions that you see on there or what have you. And then I'll come in and we'll discuss journaling a little bit inside of the various different groups until we get that system right, then we won't record it. So I ask for you to record it with your memory, and make sure you do a good job at that. So right now I'm creating the rooms. Did anybody have any questions while I'm typing these rooms up?
There's a question as to why we're using court cards.
Well, court cards, and it doesn't matter what astrology deck that you have. That's just part of the system of the tarot. It don't matter whether you're using a weight deck. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what deck that you use. You always have your court cards. In fact, just as a fun fact, and if you look inside of the course number 6 book, it gives you the origin of the playing cards. And I know some people have discrepancy or whatever, but when you deal with the playing cards, you will get your minor arcana as well as your suits inside of the playing cards that we use. The only thing that's dropped from it is the major arcana and also the what we call the horseman cards. And other decks, they may call that 4th card something else that's inside of their court cards, but it's the horseman. That's the only one that's dropped off. But other than that, you pretty much get everything except for the major arcana when you look at your regular playing deck. Another question?
What is meant by journalizing?
Journaling. Journalizing probably was a assault on the English language that I used when I was talking about journaling. But journaling is when you it's like think of a diary, and in a diary you writing your daily activities. When you do a journal, what you are doing is the days, whenever you do a spread, you would record that spread in there. You'll record the date that you did the spread. You'll record the date that you did the spread. You'll record, maybe the question that you had for that particular spread. And then you will name what that spread was. And then you'll record the result of that. That's how you journal. And what that does for you is over time, you can go back and look at your journal and you will begin to see a pattern, or you will see if, okay, that came to pass. When I did this spread and asked this question on that day, you could see when they came to pass. And then that's how you pretty much study, keep a note of your progress. But even after you get the tarot system all the way down, that's something for you to keep in your arsenal to help you remember, and like I said, to track your readings that you do. Another question, Vega?
Rex Oxley is asking to have the Queen card shown so that he can understand what it looks like.
You said Rex? Do you have the tarot deck
I do.
Rex, do you have a Church of Light tarot deck yet? So which queen are you talking about? It'll say it on there. You got the queen of wands, the queen of cups, the queen of coins, as well as the queen of swords. The king, queen, and youth, it's all on the cards. So that means that you got to go through the cards. And again, that's the whole purpose for doing the spreads right now. Not to make a great grand prediction, but to go through the motions of seeing which positions represents which, and to get familiar with the cards. The more spreads you're doing, then the more of the cards that you are encountering inside of those spreads. And so now you're beginning to get familiar with how the different cards look. It's not a shortcut to it. Okay, so now we are about to go inside of the breakout rooms. Remember, now, is there anyone who don't remember what their sun sign is, whether it's earth, fire, air, or water? Do I need to put that back up? Or we got it? If we got it, then I go in good faith and let y'all pick y'all rooms, and you'll have 15 minutes in there, and all rooms are now open for you to go and select. Contacting invisible help. Now, in contacting invisible help, you want to go first. I say after everything I say here, you want to go back and read the handout. We have a particular handout on contacting invisible help. We learned the other week that the way that we communicate when we are on the astral plane is through our vibrations. And based on the quality of our vibration, that determines the quality of the energy that we contact. We learned about feeling ESP and intellectual ESP. Because you are using intellectual ESP instead of feeling ESP, doesn't dictate the quality of the vibration that you are connecting with. Intellectually, you can still do something that's of a lower vibration. Just because it's intellectual don't mean that it won't be of a lower vibration. The example that Zane gave was about a bootlegger, right? And in the example that he gave about a bootlegger, he was like, well, and think about it, you got to look at the time period that Zane was on a manifest and that he was teaching these lessons. During that time, it wasn't too far from prohibition and all of that. So bootlegging would be a popular thing to talk about and to give an example that's used. Now he said if a person was looking for a bootlegger or something like that, and they didn't know anything about it, the first thing that they would do is they would have to go through their Rolodex of friends and see which one of their friends, and I'm paraphrasing, see which one of their friends would be more prone to be involved in that particular segment of life with bootleggers. The same thing could be said with gangsters. If you was looking for a hitman, or if you was looking for a certain drug dealer or something like that, or if you was looking for a person that would help you purchase a house, you would have to first get in contact with that person. And in getting in contact with that person, that you would have to go to a place where that person would frequent, or at least you would have to have someone that take you to a place where that person is more prone to be at. The thing becomes in who it is that takes you there, who it is that you ask. What makes this important is who it is that you ask. That's equivalent to what number are you dialing. The number that you dial is based off of the vibratory rate, because the vibratory rate describes the particular area that you are in. For instance, if you're trying to find a bootlegger, then you will have to dial a bootleg number. But if we want to put it in the terms of what these vibratory rates are, then you will have to dial or tune in to something that deals with Pisces. You will have to tune into a vibration that deals with Neptune. And then once you tune into that particular vibration, now you are in that area that deals with those things. Now you have to determine the quality of the person that you're going to contact in that marketplace. The quality of the person that you're going to contact inside of that marketplace is going to be based off of your intent. Why did you go there? See, because while Pisces may deal with alcohol, if you're looking for the bootlegger or what have you, Pisces also deals with spirituality. Both of these are in the same marketplace. But what section of that marketplace you're going into will depend on the intent, and your intent is going to further modify the frequency that your vibration is at. Why are you there? What are you looking for? And if you're depending or entrusting someone else to point you to the proper place, then the question becomes, how well do you know that person that's pointing you there? What vibratory rate are they going off of? And both of these two things goes in contact with each other, because it tells us that innocence is no protection. While your soul may be okay, your experience is going to be reflective of your action. Your experience is going to be reflective of what manner and what way you traveled there. Your experience is going to be reflective of where you traveled. Whether you went to see the bootlegger is the example that he gave, but I think one that you can probably relate to a little bit more is clicking on the wrong link. Let's say that you are on the website and you were scrolling along on the website and you was finding everything that you wanted to find and everything, and then you messed around and clicked on a link, and the link that you clicked on sent the virus to your computer. But it was you that clicked on the link. The link didn't click on itself. That's the equivalent of tuning in to the wrong vibration, accepting the wrong help. And a lot of times we accept help, and this is equally true when you are dealing in the astral realm. You will be approached. And that's why we make the emphasis on using intellectual ESP as opposed to feeling ESP, because with intellectual ESP, you say, this is what I want, this is where I'm going to go, and that's what you're going to do. But with feeling ESP, you kind of going along with the tide. And you might have something that has a stronger feeling than yours because you're not controlling the environment. Where in intellectual ESP, you are the one who is controlling the environment. So let's say you clicked on the wrong link, and you didn't have no ill intent when you clicked on the wrong link, but that's not going to stop them from wiping your bank account out. You see, when we deal with these different vibrations, some of them, it's a price to pay. Some of them, and they'll say, well, the lower entities, they're no different than you. They might not know any more than you or something like that, but some of them do. And they may lead you to two truths and a lie or something like that. But then it's a price to pay. Take a person that's in the robbing banks. Let's take a person that grew up in the church and they believe in God and all of this and that, and whatever happened inside of their life, they end up going down the wrong path. But because they learned how to pray and all of that type of stuff, you know, they always prayed before they did anything. And so this particular person, let's say they was getting ready to go and rob a bank, and before they went to rob a bank, they followed the ritual that they've been practicing all of their life, and they said a prayer. You know, they prayed that they don't get the dye packet out of the bank. They prayed that they get away with all of the money. They prayed that they don't get caught at the scene, and they prayed that don't nobody get hurt, or at least that they don't get hurt. And they said that prayer, and they believed in that prayer. The question is, if the prayer was answered, who answered that prayer? Is it God? Is it the all of love that answered the prayer? Is that the vibration from the most perfect deity? No. No, that's not the vibration from the most potent deity. That's not the vibration of the all of love. And even if that prayer was answered, it don't mean that it was answered by the deity that some may call God, or some may call Allah, or whatever name they give to the deity, to the ultimate good. Because that prayer was answered, you have other energies there. And one of those lower ones might have helped facilitate those things on the astral plane to make that happen. One of those lower vibrations on the astral plane, but high enough to be powerful, might have facilitated to make sure that that getaway car was there when it was supposed to be there. One of those lower vibrations might have facilitated on an astral plane to make sure that the right cash register was went to and that dye pack wasn't received in. That didn't come from the deity of love. That came from the vibration that they were vibrating on. So that's who answered the telephone call. The telephone call wasn't determined by the name that they used. The telephone call was determined by the vibration that they had. And so this is in the warnings of using the tarot. If you find yourself to not be in the best thinking, if you find yourself to not be in the best vibe, that's not the time for you to mess with those cards. That's the time for you to sit those cards down, work on whatever it is that you need to work on, clear your energy, make sure that your vibration is at a certain level before you go deal with them. Because it's a price to pay. Because that same person that was robbing all of those banks, guess what? One day he had to pay. And when he paid, because the universe leaves nothing unchecked, we learned that when we dealt with number 8, it was worth, the cost was far more than what he received. So that's if I had any warning to you, this is real. This is 100% real. Get rid of the selfishness that may be there before you exercise these tools that you are receiving. Because believe me, these are tools. These are tools that tips the scale when you're dealing with somebody that may know nothing about it. And so you have a greater responsibility in what you do with it and how you use these tools. Whether you are using astrology whether you are using a sacred tarot, whether you are using alchemy, you have a greater responsibility because you have a greater accessibility. Somebody asks, how much should you charge? If you really want my answer, starting off in the beginning, charge however much you was charged to take this course. However much you was charged to take this class, then charge that. I don't think nobody was charged. No, but that's the thing, though. That's the thing. You know, you wanna me and I'm definitely not your financial guru on this with my Pisces in my second house. I learned not to set my prices for any type of business that I do. But remember, you're just learning. And so for anybody, you know what you want, you know what you owe to them, you give them honesty. Start off with your family and friends. Especially if somebody asked a question about people that found out that they taking the class and that they learning, they know where you are at. Don't charge them. They helping you. They are allowing you to practice on them. And then when you get real good, then you say, well, now you know I'm charging you now, right? No, but no, use it, learn the tenements of the Church of Light. That will help you get the best of it is out of all of the tools in the Church of Light. At the end of the day, it's all about the utmost improvement for universal welfare. And when you go into that, then you are going to your readings cloaked in love. And when you go into your readings cloaked in love, then you getting the purest answers that you can give, because you're making sure that your vibration is at the higher level. And so you don't have to worry about what you have to pay back. You don't have to worry about what the price is to pay. With that, I know that it says 10 minutes, but we are going a 5-minute break, and I'll see y'all in 5. 1 through 9 have the deacons. The 10 is the reason why that is because 1 through 9 are root numbers and 10 is a decade. And so the deacons are all based off of the root numbers. 3 signs, you figure 3 signs to every element. And the deaconate is 10 degrees. And so every sign has 30 degrees. So that's 3 deaconates in each sign. The deaconate is 10 degrees. Yep, the youth are the jacks. And you can also see it on the cards, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's on the cards as well. And I'm gonna tell you, for a time when I wasn't able to get to the deck, I used the regular playing cards, and man, they was amazing. They worked extremely well using the system. Oh, yes. The synthesis of magic. The synthesis of magic. So Zane urges everyone to learn the synthesis of magic, to ultimately commit it to memory. It's awesome. It's awesome, and you can commit it to memory. And what it does is, I'm gonna show you what it does. And everybody has this. It's also inside of our, look at this. It's also inside of our handouts. But the synthesis of magic, or the mantram of the wheel. And so all of these numbers that you see You know, on this page is 1 through 18, and then on the next one, you'll see you got it all the way down to 22, 21, and 0. Let's go over this right quick. I have to go over one. And so it will say the human will, and then the number one. The number one is signifying the number one of the major arcana. And the synthesis of magic is really taking you down the travel of the major arcana. And so the human will, number one, and remember, number one rules the short key terms of divinatory significance that it gives you is will and dexterity. So the human will, enlightened by science. Number two, you look on the paper, it tells you that number two, which is the veil Isis, it rules science. That's Virgo. Virgo rules science, and manifested by action, which is number three. Number three is unveil Isis, creates the realization, keyword for number four, the major arcana, of a power which it uses or abuses according to good or bad inspiration. Jupiter is inspiration. That's number five. The Hierophant. And even when you look in a minor arcana, you'll see inspiration coming up under those. In the circle which has been traced for it by the laws of universal order. After having surmounted the trial, number six, which is the two paths, that's the trial, which has been imposed by divine wisdom, he will enter by his victory. Number seven, the number seven is that's your Sagittarius. That's the victor, you know, into possession of the work it has created and establishing equilibrium. And I know if y'all don't remember none of the other cards, we went down there deep on number 8, the justice card, and equilibrium upon the axis of prudence. That's the sage. That's number 9. He will rule upon the axis of prudence. He will rule the oscillations of fortune. Number 10. Remember, 10 is sudden change. Oscillation means to change, to turn. And so upon the axis of prudence, remember, number 9 is prudence. That's the sage. It stands for wisdom and prudence. In other words, it's telling you when he uses wisdom, then he will rule the changing of fortune. That's what it's telling you. So this is good right here. The force of man, number 11, sanctified by sacrifice. Number 12, the martyr, sacrifice, the martyr, get it? Which is the voluntary offer of himself upon the altar of devotion or expiation. Devotion or expiation. Look up the difference between those two words. Triumphs over death. This divine transformation, number 13, raises him beyond the tomb into the serene region of infinite progress and opposes the reality of initiative. Number 14, the alchemist, to the eternal falsehood of fatality. Number 15, the eternal falsehood of fatality. Number 15, they call the black magician, is ruled by Saturn. We equate Saturn with fatality. The course of time is marked by ruins. That's Mars. That's the tower in a lot of the decks. You know, the lightning inside of our decks. But beyond every ruin one sees, reappears the dawn of hope. That's 17. All of those Geminis are out there. That's the dawn of hope. That's the star. Or the twilight of deception, number 18. Man, oh man, I had so much of an epiphany dealing with that number 18. Oh my God. Okay. Anyway, so unceasingly, man aspires to that whichever flees from him, and the son of happiness, number 19, happiness, that's Leo, will only rise for him beyond the tomb. Number 20, that's the moon. After the renewal of his being by death, which opens to him a higher sphere of will, intelligence, and action. Every will that lets itself be governed by the instincts of the flesh abdicates its liberty and is bound to the expiation. I gotta speak on this. Every will that lets itself be governed by the instincts of the flesh abdicates its liberty. In other words, when you allow yourself to be governed by the physical, by the physical, then you bound to the expiation, which that's number 22. That's the difference between 22 and 0. 22 is the letter T with the point going downwards to the earth, meaning that you stuck there of its errors. On the contrary, every will which unites itself with deity in order to manifest truth and work justice enters even in this life, not just when he dies, even in this life, into participation of divine power over beings and things, recompense. Number 21, the adapt, eternal of freed spirits. This is the same card that's Arcana 22, but the difference is it's flipped the opposite direction. So instead of a T with the point going down to the earth, the T is upside down with the point going up beyond the earth, like the light color of the interlocking triangles that represents part of the symbol for the Church of Light. That's deep, man. Look, I enjoy. We already went over the journals. Boy, we are ahead of the game. We are ahead of the game. But I listen now, just to give y'all a heads up, I got a couple different contests going on, and I ain't told y'all about the contest, but it's gonna be some giveaways. I'm talking about some real giveaways. I'm not gonna say what the giveaways are. Shoot, I might lose my job, might not be able to pay for it, so I ain't gonna lock myself into it. But it's gonna be some giveaways. The giveaway could be books. The giveaway could be decks of cards. Who knows? The giveaway could be some type of program. But it's gonna be some giveaways. Just giving y'all the heads up. And one of them is gonna be one of the questions for the giveaways, or the thing is gonna be reciting by memory the synthesis of magic. I'm just saying. All right, so we already did journaling. Now we are getting ready to do the spreads. And the Magic 7 spread is that was part of the homework that was given. And if you see the Magic 7 spread, now of course when you put the cards out, you're not going to see, you will see it in your mind, but it's not going to automatically just form these triangles that make up this 6-pointed star right here. So don't panic if you put your cards in these positions and you don't see the lines that's connecting all of the cards together like you see on this. You will see them in your mind, but you know, if by chance the lines start glowing and you got that triangle right there, tell me about it. I want to listen. I want to hear about that. You know, but so each point on the Magic 7 spread, you know, it represents a planet. And the Magic 7 spread actually for me is one of my two go-to spreads. The yes and no spread, I do that, but that's probably one of the least spreads that I do. The Magic 7 spread is one of the spreads that I probably do the most, and the results for me, and that's just for me, you know, it works. It's extremely, all of them work, you know, but for me, you know, because my unconscious mind and my astral counterpart and all of that is used to this one, you know, and so it works well. The number 1 position represents the past or whatever the question is, and that's symbolized by the sun. The sun is the life giver. Number 2 represents the moon. That's the present situation. The moon represents fecundation, which is our present state. Number 3 is the near future. What's coming. It's not the end result, but it's what's coming in the near future in regards to the object of this spread, and that's ruled by Jupiter. And then number 4 is what's going on around the favorable people and all of that. That's Mars. That's the people that'll fight for you in this situation. Number 5 is the environment, the whole environment around and what's explaining the environment and all of that. And that's ruled by Venus. And number 6, that represents what opposes this situation. It's not the result, but it's the challenges to what's going on right here. And that's ruled by Saturn, which is of the nature of Saturn. And number 7 represents the result. And this is Mercury. Here's something that I want to tell y'all about spreads. Right now, we're doing the spreads to learn the cards. What I do, and this is just what works for me, and this is what happens with my unconscious mind. Sometimes I might be doing spreads and I may shuffling and a card may get stuck. For me, when a card gets stuck, since nothing is accidental from when I do it, I sit that card to the side when a card gets stuck. And that's just me. I sit that to the side, And then once I do the spread and everything, I flip that card over. And oftentimes for me, that gives me additional information about the spread. And can you answer a yes or no question? In other words, can you give a definite answer to a question using the spread? Yeah, sure. Of course you can. Of course you can. And it just gives you a different way of doing it. So know how to care for your cards, how to shuffle your cards and all of that. And Zane gives a really good explanation or directives on how to do it. You want to, when you're able to, you want to place them in a wooden box. You want to wrap them up in silk when you can. You want to make sure that you keep them in a place where the vibrations and all of that will be good, and will be favorable. And if you got different decks that you use for different purposes, let's say you got a deck that you want to use just when you want to do spiritual readings or something like that, or just strictly based on spiritual for yourself or for others. Keep that deck by itself and use that by itself. And then the vibrations on that and the way that your subconscious and unconscious mind responds to that particular deck, you'll be able to tell the difference. But let me do this spread right quick. Says to use, but we already went through, Christopher Gibson already showed y'all, and we already discussed the various other methods if you're already used to doing it. And what I will say is, even if you have other methods or other ways of shuffling or something like that that you're used to, the one thing that I don't think is that I wouldn't say is, in the eyes of the user, is the spreads, because the spreads are specific. If it says to read them from the right to left, that's the way you want to read them, because all of them don't say that. So the spreads are specific. And just like you show in this Magic 7 spread, how the different positions represented different planets, the spreads have an intent purpose. So follow the spreads by the letter. Cut them 3 times, 3 piles, flip one pile around, recollect the cards. Repeat the process. Except for while you're doing them, you won't be saying repeat the process.
Can you explain briefly why it's important to turn the cards from top to bottom?
That's the method that Zane uses. Now, if you ask me something about why it's important to use the left hand instead of the right, I can give you a more concise answer on that one. But the top to bottom, that's Zane doesn't go in the book. He doesn't give a particular reasoning as to why he says the top to bottom. So this was the card in the first position, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and the seventh. And so in the first position, you flip it over. It would be the enchantress, but it's reversed. And so you'll read this as this pass is leaving from a situation that was not as spiritual as it should have been, or that had a lower spirit, because it's reversed. You know, it was a challenging spiritual matter. That's what it's leaving from. Currently, because of that, it's at a situation to where the adapt powers are not being utilized. Why did I say not being utilized? Because it's at a reverse, and that would make sense. It started off with a spirit that was questionable, or not the highest spirit, and the present state is the adapt faculties are not being used to the fullest. Immediately in the future, science is going to enter the picture, and analyzation comes into the picture. And then what's favorable, or what's helping here, is the Eight of Cups. And the Eight of Cups is equivalent to Pisces with the moon in there. And so you're dealing with extravagance and things of that nature. And so, but extravagance of what? This is cups, this is emotions. Emotions is also dealing with the psychic energy and psychic powers, because that's what Pisces is. And then what's going on in the environment is the emotions are the emotions and the feelings and everything is kind of down in matters that's dealing with the home. You know, what's opposing this situation right here is the desires. You know, it could be the desires off of a particular female that that may be a little bit, possessive, you know, or that's just real intent, you know, and strong with her will and things of that nature. But it's her desires, or the desires about her, that's potentially opposing this whole situation. What the end result of the situation is going to be is a lack of rulership, you know, a lack of rulership. Now, that's just an example. On that, I didn't have a particular question in there, and nothing. Even though it's doing the spreads, I can see how that kind of relate to a definite situation or something for me. But I didn't go into it with a particular question. But that's just a sample on how to do this with the cards. And so I give us 5 minutes. I want you to return to your group and just pick one person out of the group to do the spread, and then we'll come back and close everything out. All coming together, and we are getting ready to close everything out.
And you're going to tell us what videos and all that to watch.
Well, at this stage, I'm suggesting watch Vanessa Brown's videos.
Say that again.
Watch Vanessa Brown's videos, and if you already went through one of her courses, then go to Christopher. Take your pick at this point. You know, go to the YouTube. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Go to the YouTube for the Church of Light, and you know, pick one of the tarot videos out. And it's not just Christopher Gibson that has tarot videos on there. All of them are really good. You know, I think Alan McCrae has one on there. So go to there. But I would say go to the Church of Light. Go to
Right.
Vanessa Brown's. Go through hers
I will.
real quick if you haven't. I believe you have though.
Aurelio?
And I seen a question that somebody asked. They said that the planets weren't in the book. The planets are in the book. This is the book. It has the planetary position inside of the book.
I've got the book where I was just reading from the page where it's listed, like there's not a picture there. It's not with a diagram. It's where it's just
So
talking about it.
you have to go to, so inside of the book, the description is on one page, but the diagram is on a different page.
Okay.
So when you go to the illustration, then you can see it.
Okay.
What page is that?
I believe,
122, if you have the big blue book, 122.
and then you can look by the serial lesson as well. But if you got the book, just go to the table of contents and look in the front. It'll tell you, look for the tarot spreads. There's a page just on there for the tarot spreads, and it'll tell you what page is illustrated on and what page is described on. The YouTube channel is light.org. Okay. We got anything else? If not anything else, we can get ready to close out.
White Eagle wants to know what was the direction for cutting the cards? Can you just quickly give that example?
Yeah, so the direction for cutting the cards is to shuffle the cards, and then cut them into 3 piles. And when you cut them, a couple of the decks or one of the decks will periodically turn the deck around, so all of the cards are not facing the same direction. Recollect the cards, meaning put the cards back together, not down like you put them up, but put them back together so you mixing the cards up. And however you do it, stick to that. However you do it, just keep sticking to that same thing. And it'll be just like the Avatar when he got that big old dragon and he connected to it and connected his tail to it, and he was driving and was able to go. It'll be just like that. You'll connect to him. But just keep up with the same process.
And all your handouts are on that google.com.
Yeah, and as somebody pointed out, if you download it earlier, make sure you go back and take a look, because I did make changes on the tarot table chart. I think I might have been half asleep when I did the first one, because when I went back and saw it, I was like, oh Lord, let me take this off.
All right. So are we done?
We're done.